The crowd gathered early at the prestigious Briarstone University, the sun casting golden rays over the proud lawn. Among the buzzing guests and students in caps and gowns, Emma stood alone. She wasn't there to celebrate. She was there to see if her parents had really gone through with it. If they'd erased her completely. She scanned the program booklet. No mention of her name. Not on the guest list, not on the family seating chart. Nothing. She had once helped design the family crest now printed on the back cover, but today she was nothing more than a ghost with a plain white badge labeled guest. Emma's mother, Patricia, stood under the family tent in a sky-blue blazer, her smile tight and professional. Her father, Gerald, tapped his foot impatiently, always half distracted by his phone. Between them stood their star child, Grace, dressed in her honor cords, the pride of the day. When Patricia finally saw Emma, her face barely moved. "Oh, you came," she said coolly. "I got the invitation," Emma replied, forcing her voice steady. "You must have seen a copy. We didn't expect you." Grace gave Emma a soft hug, whispering, "I'm glad you're here," but her eyes kept flicking to their mother, careful, calculating. The ceremony began right on time. Emma sat alone near the edge of the tent, next to a sleeping elderly man and a toddler chewing on a ribbon. Her parents were in the center, laughing, waving to acquaintances. Gerald soon approached the microphone. "Today," he began, "we honor our eldest daughter, Grace. Her discipline, integrity, and values reflect what this family stands for." The applause was polite. Cameras clicked. But then his voice shifted. "As of today, we've made a family decision. One that reflects who we are." Emma's hands tensed in her lap. "We are no longer extending ourselves to those who do not reflect our values. That includes our younger daughter, Emma." Silence. Not even a gasp. Just coughs, shifting seats, the rustle of paper. Emma didn't move. She didn't speak. She sat there staring at the grass under the stage. Someone behind her murmured, "Did he just?" Another voice whispered, "At a graduation?" She stood slowly and walked out without looking back. At the reception, she searched for her name at the tables. Grace's friends had place cards. Her old music teacher had one. But not Emma. A woman passed by and asked, "Are you with the catering team?" Emma looked down at her plain badge again. Guest. That's all she was now. She didn't go home right away. Emma wandered through the city streets, past busy cafes and parents laughing over graduation lunches. She rode the train back to her apartment in silence, her hands gripping the seat. At home, she dropped the program on her counter and it fell open to a photo, her parents and Grace beaming under the headline, "A proud day for the Dalton family." Her name wasn't mentioned. That night, she pulled out an old yearbook. In it, a photo from Grace's high school graduation. She remembered standing next to her sister on the porch, her mother yelling about the wrinkle in her dress. But in this version, Emma had been cropped out completely. Emma sat cross-legged on her living room rug, the yearbook open in her lap like a book of erased memories. She traced the edge of the photo where she used to be. Not forgotten, deleted. On the couch lay a box of old cards, letters, and keepsakes, things she once believed proved she mattered. But even those had started to feel like props from a life someone else had lived. That night, Emma didn't cry. She got quiet. Then she started digging. She pulled out her old laptop and opened files she hadn't touched in years. Something had changed. This wasn't just pain. This was something deeper. A quiet rage, focused and steady. The rain began after midnight, tapping softly against the window. Emma sat in the dim light of the screen, her shoulders wrapped in a blanket. She clicked through files from when she did bookkeeping for the Dalton Foundation years ago. They never revoked her access. She opened folder after folder, not sure what she was looking for until she saw it. A document titled Transfer Authorization, Seaside Property. Her heart froze. Her name was on it, her full legal name. But the signature wasn't hers. The E in Emma was crooked, the last name looped too sharp. It had been forged. Emma compared it to her real signature on an old lease tucked in a folder. The difference was clear. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't just betrayal, it was illegal. The beach house her grandmother left in her will had been taken. Sold. Behind her back. Her cousin Lauren, a notary public, had signed off on it. Emma stared at the screen, fingers trembling. Her chest burned. The house wasn't just property. It was memories. Summers painting porch rails, rinsing off salt water after swims, laughing while her dad grilled fish on the back deck. And now it was gone. She couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m. she called the only person who might tell the truth, her Aunt Margot. "Emma?" The older woman answered with a rasp. "You okay?" Emma's voice cracked. "Not really. They forged my name. I found the transfer file." Silence stretched between them. "Oh, sweetheart," Margot whispered. "You saw it then." Emma's breath caught. "You knew." Margot sighed. "Your mother said it was just routine. She told me they were updating the books for taxes. I didn't know they sold it, not until it was done." Emma slid to the floor back against the wall. "I trusted you," she whispered. "I'm sorry, Emma. I should have warned you," Margot said, her voice heavy with guilt. "But you know how Patricia gets. And Gerald just follows." That line stung more than Emma expected. "I'm tired of hearing that," she said quietly. "Tired of everyone making excuses for them." Margot didn't argue. They sat in silence, the kind that says more than words. When Emma finally hung up, it was almost dawn. Her eyes burned, but she didn't cry. She grabbed a legal pad, a pen, and started making a list. She had questions. And now she was going to get answers. By morning she was still awake, hair pulled into a messy bun, her coffee cold and forgotten beside her laptop. Her hands moved quickly over the keys, cross-checking property records, trust documents and financial logs. Every line revealed a pattern. Intentional, quiet removals. Her name struck out here, replaced there. The beach house wasn't the only asset redirected. There were donation memos, board minutes, and a list of family-approved representatives. Grace's name was everywhere. Was nowhere. She sat back, blinking at the screen. This wasn't just neglect. This was a full rewrite of the Dalton legacy. The Bar Harbor property. Parcel 243A. Sold. To Harbridge Holdings. She clicked the buyer name. The attorney listed was the same one Grace had posted about recently, proud to work with her on her new family-centered investment firm. Emma leaned forward, eyes narrowing. It was gone. Sold to fund Grace's company. The porch she painted, the railing she sanded, now flipped into some luxury family legacy branding. Her hands clenched into fists. Her grandmother would have been furious. Emma whispered, "Not anymore. Not again." She closed the laptop like sealing a coffin. She needed air. She threw on a jacket and walked to the neighborhood bookstore. Not to buy anything. Just to move. But fate wasn't done yet. As she turned near the self-help aisle, she heard a familiar voice. "Emma? My goodness." Mrs. Holbrook, her mother's old friend, held a book titled Graceful Aging Through Faith. She smiled in that way women do when their words are weapons. "Heard Grace is doing amazing. Your mom said she's expanding into real estate. Such a visionary, that girl." Emma stared at her. "Funny. I thought that house was still ours." The woman blinked, her smile twitching. "Oh, well, you know how families are. Always rearranging things." Emma nodded slowly. "Yes. Some rearrangements come with forged signatures." Mrs. Holbrook flushed, then looked away. "I wouldn't know anything about that." She quickly placed the book back and walked off. Emma left the store in silence. Her phone buzzed as she stepped outside. A text from an old classmate. "Saw Grace bought the summer house. Living the dream, huh?" Emma stared at it, her jaw tightening. Living the dream. Funny how erasing someone else made it easier to shine. Emma didn't respond. She went home, printed every document she had and packed a slim folder. Then she changed her clothes. Something neutral. Something quiet. Because some truths weren't delivered in anger. They were presented like evidence. She walked into the law office her parents had used for decades. The receptionist greeted her nervously. Emma said nothing. She simply handed over the folder to Warren Bell, the longtime family lawyer. "Everything you need is inside. Signatures, recordings, a statement." "I'm not asking for anything," she said as he opened the folder. "I'm just making sure the truth gets filed properly." Emma didn't stay to watch Warren Bell's reaction. She walked out of the office without a backward glance. As the elevator doors closed, her reflection in the chrome showed a woman who hadn't slept, but looked more alive than she had in years. Her voice recordings saved over months were now evidence. Conversations she'd overheard, donor meetings, hallway whispers, All the times they spoke about her like she wasn't in the room. Like she didn't exist. Her mother once said, "We only use Grace's face. Emma doesn't fit the image." And her father had chuckled, "She used to read everything." They were right. She still did. Back home, Emma stared at the family photo by her bookshelf. The only version where she hadn't been cropped out yet. It was from before Grace's high school graduation. She kept it not for nostalgia but as a reminder. They hadn't just forgotten her. They'd deliberately removed her. But now the narrative had shifted. She didn't send those documents to destroy them. She sent them to record the truth. She called her lawyer that evening. "I'm not doing this for revenge," she told him. "But they don't get to erase me and expect my silence to mean agreement." He nodded. "Then we begin now." By morning, Emma's inbox was buzzing. Before she could even open the news, a friend texted, "You made the headlines." A national nonprofit watchdog site had published an exposé. Family Foundation faces integrity crisis. The article didn't name her, but the files were unmistakably hers. Internal memos, altered documents, audio clips. One clip had already leaked, her mother saying, "Emma doesn't photograph well with our message." The internet reacted quickly. Comments exploded. "Erased for branding? Disgusting. This is what happens when image is more important than family." But Emma didn't say a word. The Dalton Foundation scrambled. Events were cancelled. Donors withdrew quietly. Grace's face disappeared from their website. Emma walked to her neighborhood cafe and passed a group whispering while scrolling on their phones. One was reading the article. She didn't stop. She didn't need to. That afternoon, a PR firm emailed her, "We'd love to include your voice in a unifying statement." Emma didn't reply. That night, her parents announced a family unity luncheon at their club. Only 2 people showed up. Grace didn't. The board began asking questions about the trust, the house, the missing funds. And Emma? She stayed quiet. She'd already said everything that mattered. The courtroom was ordinary. No gold accents or polished wood. Just rows of benches, buzz from overhead lights, and the heavy silence of truth. Emma sat beside her lawyer Philip, folder in hand. Across from her sat Patricia, arms folded tight. Gerald stared at the floor. Grace didn't even look up from her phone. When the judge called the hearing to order, Philip stood. "Your Honor, we request that exhibits A through E be entered into the record." Among them, the Real will, financial statements, and voice recordings. The room held its breath as he continued. The judge reviewed the files, then paused at Exhibit D. It was the original will from Emma's grandmother, naming Emma as the primary heir to the Bar Harbor property. The judge looked over her glasses. "This version was notarized and properly filed?" "Yes, ma'am," Philip confirmed. "It predates the current revision and was replaced quietly." Patricia stiffened. Gerald spoke at last. "That wasn't meant to be the final copy." The judge shut him down. "Intentions are not law. Documents are." Grace finally looked up, her lips pressed tight. For once, no one interrupted as the truth played on the speakers. The courtroom echoed with Patricia's own voice. "We only use Grace's face." Then Gerald's, "We need to be careful what Emma finds. She used to read everything." Patricia stood, her face flushed. "You ungrateful girl," she hissed at Emma. "You waited all this time to destroy us?" Emma stood too calm and certain. "No. I waited so I wouldn't destroy myself." The judge ruled without pause. Emma was the rightful heir. The trust was frozen. The foundation was under audit. Grace stormed out. Gerald stayed seated, quiet. Patricia stared at Emma like she didn't recognize her. But Emma? She looked forward. 6 months later, Emma stood barefoot in a bright room once filled with dust and old books. The Bar Harbor house had been renovated, not for show but for purpose. It was now a writer's retreat for women from foster backgrounds and family estrangement. A place for voices long erased. The plaque at the entry read, "For the granddaughters they erased, and the ones who refused to stay erased." The only press release was a donation letter in her grandmother's name. No cameras. Just hope, purpose, and space to breathe. Emma had finally claimed more than an inheritance. She claimed her name. She hadn't heard from her parents. Not once. The Dalton Foundation's operations had halted. Grace had disappeared from public view. But one Tuesday an envelope arrived. No return address. Inside, a letter in Grace's handwriting. You were right. I'm sorry it took this to see it. Emma placed it in a box beside the old family crest pin. Not as a keepsake but as a record. These days she didn't need to sit at anyone's table. She built her own. And now she got to decide who sat with her. At the retreat's open mic night, a little boy from the nearby shelter handed Emma a paper badge he'd made. This is for you, he said. You showed up. She smiled and pinned it over her heart, right where the family crest used to sit. It wasn't gold. It wasn't formal. But it was honest. She sat in the back row not to be seen but to witness, to belong. And this time she wasn't there out of hope someone would see her. She was there because she saw herself. And that was enough. Moral lesson. When you're written out of someone else's story, write your own. True healing begins the moment you stop chasing validation and start standing in your truth. Silence doesn't protect the past. It only delays your power.